Hello, and welcome to another Chronowalkers Champion Time Warp. We're doing 12 of these videos, one for each champion in the new Origin set from Genesis Battle of Champions. And here is Bazin. Eric and I have a lot of love for this champion.
Yep, definitely.
Taking a look at the stats there, we've got 19 health, so a little on the low side. 150 aura, ooh, I love that. And then 0 energy. Forward awareness, we're in Axon and Chaos colors. And then we got a Swift Water Attack 1, which cost Exert, pretty standard damage ability. And then, ooh, here's the spice. Reality Master, continuous ability. When you beckon to summon, you may place it on any spot around you. And as we've noted in the past, continuouses modify game mechanics as they're happening. So this will be relevant for, I guess, a later point we'll talk about very shortly. But Eric, what are your thoughts? What direction do you want to take Bazin in?
Yeah, so Bazin, he's a
So
very strong summoner.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It's the shenanigans you can get up to him is insane, as we'll see in some other cards coming up. He does have a low health pool, but his high aura allows him to play a lot of cards, a lot of tricks, a lot of stuff like that, and it allows him to be very tricky. And this is because he can play very defensively while also putting a lot of pressure on the board with his summons.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
It's a little hard to parse before you kind of start playing with it, but the increase in range of being able to summon on diagonals, it sounds like you're just one space closer, but if you think about board states, if you think what a diagonal means for like the spaces you can access, it really does feel um like you're covering way more of the board. Like imagine like the normal kind of first turn for a summoner, which is moving to the left or the right and then summoning front, left, or right of you. Well, Bazin moves to the left or right and then summons on the diagonal, which is pressing far more of the board, right? If you're like on the diagonal from a corner, like that's so much more of the board that summon has access to on the second turn. Um, really is an interesting way to play. But I mean, we're probably not going to be doing all our summoning on our own turn, which like means we don't actually need to be limited to just one move in a turn. But I'll let Eric talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there might be some very strong 6G summons that really affect the board, and with this added diagonal summoning, they can really pressure a lot more areas and do certain things which we couldn't do before. There's three in particular which we will get to, but yeah, the just increased utility, increased pressure, increased just mind games you can play with him. It's a lot. Is
Yeah,
there anything
I,
else?
I mean,
Just
one more thing. Well, one more important, I guess, rules thing to kind of note with this guy is, like we mentioned earlier, that continuouses modify things as they happen. Um, it basically adds 8 more spaces as accessible spaces for Resurrect Beckons. Because Resurrect Beckons, like the way they word it is, it's still fundamentally a beckon ability, and it's just the Resurrect puts it in a different spot and limits like limited to where something died, and then also something had to have died that round or that turn for most of the Resurrect Beckons in order for them to enter. But Bazin is modifying that Resurrect Beckon to have additional spots. So you can actually Resurrect Beckon if you don't like the spot you would be forced to use. You can bring that Resurrect Beckon right in front of you in any of those 8 spots around Bazin if that's safer.
mm-hmm.
So what's
Yeah.
your final thoughts, I guess? Well, not that we're going to end here, but what would you grade Bazin,
Oh,
Eric?
Bazin is probably going to be one of the top tier champions. We both think so. He's consistently been one of the strongest ones in Future League, and just the cards that have come out and the types of style games, deck styles that he can play, it's really going to really affect the meta. And it, like again, like we keep saying, like it's powerful effect, but it's really hard to see that without seeing the cards and what he can do with this specific card. So we're gonna go and show you the specific cards and how his ability affects them and changes their power level of what they could do.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump in and start it off. I'll grab that first card from poor Eric here with Emergent Worm. So this is a summon. It's got a kind of a funky awareness. It's only the left and the right, which is like kind of a power dampener for most summoner decks. The key to Emergent Worm is it's got its 3 health, it's a quick beckon for 11 aura, it's got a range fire attack 3, just all like reasonable but a little bit under for 6 chi. Like typically you want to be seeing a little bit more health or a little bit more damage. But speaking of getting more damage, it has a trigger range fire attack 3. When it enters the arena, it deals 3 range fire damage to a target in its awareness. So, I mean, if you just think about what summoning around you means and what are all the spaces that can be hit by that ability. Bazin essentially can hit everything in front of him, like all of the front, all of the same 3 spaces behind him, and then 2 columns on either side to the left and right of those. The only spaces which are free to attack into, if you're playing against a Bazin Emergent Worm deck, are the direct left and right of Bazin. But I mean, all it needs to do is playing a rotate card, which there are a couple of. And then this is, or a movement card, I guess, is even easier, and there's definitely more of those in Jalara. Or, I mean,
we're gonna see some movement cards even in Axon too.
Yeah. I mean, we can't talk about Chaos though, which Bazin's in, without talking about Oten. So like that's going to be a key part, likely. But yeah, like so yeah, Emergent Worm is kind of the nuts. Like it's hard to not fall in love with Bazin the first time you see what he can do with Emergent Worm that no one else can do.
Exactly. Yeah. We've tried this card in other champions, and it's fine. You know, quick beckons always kind of mess with the opponent's head. But this just being able to hit right in front of them means that it's not safe to go in front. He can even hit behind him with this Emergent Worm.
Yeah.
And he can double move and still summon this, which is why, as we said before, he can play defensively while still putting pressure, because he can move away from you, run away, and then if you try to get to him, he just goes boom, Emergent Worm, kills your thing that's attacking him, and now all of a sudden you are down a summon, he's up a summon. Yeah, it's so good, and you're gonna be seeing this a lot. Get your Emergent Worms now.
I mean, speaking of what you were saying about being able to play defensively, I think that leads us into our next card, which I don't know, is Eric, did you just put a picture of yourself? Is that
that's
or one of us? That's
one
just
of us. Yeah, exactly. One of us. Yes, this is for those that don't know, this is Chronowalker. It almost goes without saying, but we'll say it anyway. This is another one of those 6 chi cards that is insane in Bazin. So even in just regular decks, the quick back and decoy of this thing, the defensive capabilities you have of it, and sometimes the offensive capabilities too, is a lot. But with Bazin being able to decoy on the diagonals is just gives you so much more ability than before. You can get yourself out of really sticky situations, get yourself out of Hellchasm, and just move yourself further away out of bolt shots and tsunamis, stuff like that, way easier than a lot of other characters could get. So I've been gushing about this card. Other people gush about this card. Are you gonna gush about this card?
Yeah, Chronowalker is no like a stranger to the competitive scene. Very much like one of the cards that I think a lot of Axon players fall in love with very quickly when they're first building their first decks. Like Eric mentioned, the switch ability does not care. We've only seen before Chronowalker switching like when it's adjacent, but there's no rule that switch has to be adjacent. Switch can be on opposite side of the boards if you want it to be. Next card there, Eric.
So here we have Warp. So another one in our 3 chi good cards that we like to add in our decks. So this one is just a forward awareness 3 chi, move to a spot adjacent to a target and warps awareness. So this is just a nice little defensive card. If something comes front of you to attack you. You can warp away. That's kind of the base level of it. However, this becomes really strong when you think of the quick beckons we just mentioned, because any quick
Yeah.
beckon with this card is a build your own Chronowalker. You summon in front of you, warp away. And so every single quick beckon that comes out from here on out is going to increase the power level of this card. But even so, it is still going to be strong. You can get out of hell chasms. You can warp away with your
Yeah.
emergent worms, and just
Yeah.
generally, have some extra little bit of mobility.
Yeah, you don't get to dodge the damage of Hellchasm, unfortunately. You're still taking the 6 in that scenario, but you can, if you're Hellchasm trapped, you get to move to a spot adjacent to the chasm that's in front of you.
Yeah.
We'll note that that is pairing a 3-chi card with a 6-chi card, so 6-chi cards are fundamentally as being above 5, going to be lower numbers in your deck, like below average. Whereas Warp could be above higher, so like there is a little bit of a numbers game to figure out there with Warp. But yeah, the synergy with quick beckons, not necessarily as much with I guess Bazin's it's not so much
Ability, yeah.
synergizing with the diagonal summoning with a warp, but it's kind of just like feeding into the cards you're already using. So it's kind of a good synergy on that respect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, and here you're gonna talk about another 6G summon. However, this 6G summon, I guess, goes in a completely different deck than the Emergent Worm 6G summons, but it's still a very powerful effect we want to mention. If you want to introduce Necrolich.
Yeah, so Necrolich was a card from I believe first appeared on Rays. And this was like people were clamoring for some sort of graveyard reanimation right from the start. So then ACG being the great guys are like, okay, we'll give you something. And they made a summon that is 6-chi, and then when it enters the arena, it gets to grab a 5-chi, any 5-chi from your memories and put it on a spot adjacent to it. So why is Necrolich specifically here in Bazin? Well, again, as he mentioned, summoning on diagonals lets you do much more aggressive plays in terms of like thinking like a Necrolich now that's on a diagonal, the adjacent spots are now even further away from the Necrolich if you want to like summon something right inside someone's face, like in front of the Necrolich, so to speak. But there's actually, if you want to segue to our next card, Eric, which I'll let you take away, but there's a specific interaction which only Bazin gets to do with Necrolich,
Yeah, and
which
this
is in our next card.
exactly. So this is Alem, and similar to a Merchant Worm, which can do fancy things with Bazin. Necrolich gets to do fancy things with Bazin because you summon a diagonal, get your Alem, and then you can place it next to you and draw the card. So now, for 18 aura, you're getting 2 3/3s and a card draw. Before, if you wanted to do this, you couldn't get that card draw with Alem, and now you can. So this kind of synergy / combo will allow you to just like draw through your deck. You use some dedicated studies, discard your Alems, whatever, and then play your Necroliches, get the Alems back, draw some cards, and just flood your opponent with value.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
will note that. Oh, sorry. I will note that like this is a less of aggressive play, which I kind of personally with Bazin, I prefer actually to transition from Necrolich into our next card. But well, sticking with Alum for a little bit. Yeah, this is a little bit more of a defensive play. Like you gain 2 3/3 bodies, and they're all in one area. Like you are a little bit more susceptible to AoE because everything here has 3 health. So like we can't not think about Tsunami or Electrical Storm in Phage, which is another card that is 3 damage at 6 chi to the Tsunami 2/3 awareness. So I like personally to be a bit more aggressive, but like this is turning aura into lots of bodies and card advantage. So like with Bazin's high aura pool, it is a summoner that can take advantage of having like extra cards. But yeah, I mean I've talked enough about or hinted at our next card being a more aggressive posture.
Yep.
So I guess maybe Eric, if you want to pull us into that one.
Yeah, so let's look at
see
that
what I
next
was gushing
card.
about.
So you mentioned Tsunami, and now we have a 5-chi card that can avoid Tsunami, or at the very least doesn't die to Tsunami, and Blood Rakshasa. We've mentioned this card before, but we're going to do it again because it is a very strong card. Normally, the 2 health would be a detriment because Bazin has a very low health pool, but we're going to get around that 2 health by summoning it with Necrolich. And so this, if you want to play a more aggressive Bazin, is going to replace that Alum combo. So instead of putting 2 cards next to you, drawing a card, and then just getting blown up by a tsunami, you now just play your Necrolich at an angle, and then a Blood Rakshasa, right in front of the Necrolich. All of a sudden, you've put a bunch of pressure really far in front of you, and they can't just wipe it away with a tsunami. They have to really do something about it, and so this will allow you to really ramp up the pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the summoner, you're scared of mages AoEing, and you're scared of fighters just ignoring your summons and coming to hit you. And 4 damage is not an ignorable amount of damage. Like 3 damage over a couple, or 6 damage over 2 turns, a fighter might be like, okay, I can tank that a little bit, especially with the new fighter tools. But 8 damage, that's a lot more damage. That's more than a third of almost every champion's health. Some champions, it's getting closer to half than it is to a third. So this is a very aggressive line, and again, we are ignoring what is that aura cost, what is that health cost. We don't care. We have a Blood Rakshasa and a Necrolich.
Exactly. And you know what? If you have to hard cast this, it's not a bad card to just play.
Yes. Yeah, don't want to be, but I mean, I'm not gonna say no to a 4 damage, 4 health summon. That's for right. Such a reasonable cost. Yep. Yeah, so I guess that was our Bazin blast. So hopefully you enjoyed that and gives you a couple of ideas for building your first Bazin deck when Origins comes out.
Yeah, I know both of us can't wait to play some Bazin.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully you can't either, unless you're playing against me. I don't want to see 10 emerging worms all fighting each other. But yeah, we'll see you in the next one.